What's up, everyone? It's 6:04. We just barely missed 6:03, but it's 6:04, and the Acolyte is out. So it's time for the Acolyte's out. Molly, how you doing?
I'm okay. I'm tired. It's
I
been a
was
long day.
just making fun of how loud you type, and right when I hit go live, you typed "Here we go," and people are going to be able to hear you very loudly typing right at the start of the episode.
Whoops. That's
So,
okay.
good
This
way to
is
start.
this is a messy show sometimes. We keep it real. And we just go with the flow.
That's true. So let's add a couple of people to our mess. We have our guests this week from Daughters of Ferrix podcast, Ellie and Sophia. Welcome.
Hello, glad to
Hi,
be
thank you
here.
so much for having us.
It's great
Welcome
to
to
talk
the
to you
show.
again because as of today, this is our second podcast together that came out literally today. I mean,
Yeah, people who watch either one of us are oversaturated.
the people who watch
No
you are
such
sick of
thing.
us already. But we are going to be talking about episode 3 of The Acolyte called Destiny. And let's just dive right into it. And I'll throw it to Sophia. What were your thoughts on this episode overall? Did you like it? Did you struggle with it?
I did like it. I actually liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun. I've been enjoying the whole series so far. But I don't know. It was kind of interesting to see the evolution of the whole thing, right? Because the first 2 episodes, it felt like were very much almost like set up, establishing what's going on. And this is where I felt like we kind of dived into the meat, got some character motives and stuff. So I really enjoyed it actually.
Ellie, what'd you think?
I feel unsatisfied.
Ooh.
No, I don't know. I feel like the previous episode set up some expectations. We were going to Kalnaka. We were going to whatever the little council that Vernestra is holding is. And as soon as I saw that this was going to be like, oh, we're going to get some of the flashback stuff, I was like, they're going to only do flashback stuff. It's only going to be 16 years prior. I'm not going to get to see anything. There's not even going to be Yord in this episode. And
The Yord Horde was immediately disappointed.
Just what we needed.
I saw someone saying, a mutual of mine, I saw them saying like happy Vernestra like Tuesday, because Temptation of the Force, where Vernestra Rowe is in it, came out, and an episode of The Acolyte where Vernestra is not in it at all. But good episode. It did its job, but I really felt like kind of there's this vague like unsettling nature for me to the entire episode. Like none of the people on screen, even the people who I really enjoyed as characters or as performers, none of them I feel like I don't trust any of them. And it's especially like the entire last third, I feel like there's so much context missing that it's just a little bit distressing. Like when I started the episode for a rewatch this morning, I had this like pit in my stomach that was like, I don't know if I want to see this again. Like that was some bad stuff happened and I have no idea why. So good episode, I guess.
Molly, what did you think? I mean, I know what you thought, but
Overall, I really enjoyed the episode. When I was editing our reaction earlier, I was like, wow, I really didn't have much of a reaction during the actual episode because I was like so locked in and like trying to pay attention to the whole story because it was so different than what we're used to. And yeah, it was a little bit jarring to like go immediately into a flashback and like that was the whole episode. So but I liked how different it was, and I love when Star Wars is weird and gay, so I thought it was great.
It was very weird and gay today, I will say.
I think that I had the opposite reaction as you, Ellie, that when I saw it was a flashback, I think I went, oh, maybe it'll all be 16 years in the past. Because ever since Torbin took that poison, I've been like, I want to know. And yeah, this didn't give us that. It didn't tell us why he took that poison. There wasn't enough context, like you said, but it was fun to get started with that. And I think there's probably a reason that they showed us just half the perspective, and then they're probably going to save the other half for later, wondering if we're going to just see the Jedi side of things or if it'll be more from May's point of view or how they're going to handle that. But I kind of hope it's from the Jedi side of things, because they really treated the Jedi pretty rough in this episode.
Yeah, it did bring up more questions than it answered, for sure. And I think a lot of people struggled with that. But I kind of dig when shows do that. Like, just really throw me in it and let me flounder in what's happening.
Well, this is the first episode of this series that I felt like, okay, this was a full story. With the beginning, middle, and end. It didn't end super abruptly. It did something specific and told us a little more context about the sisterhood of May and Osha. And that I liked. I liked the structure of this episode specifically.
Yeah. And we talked about this, Alex, earlier, the fact that the title of this one is just the one word. And we were like, maybe that's because it was like a singular perspective kind of episode. This is mostly from Osha's point of view.
And I guess we should just start there with the beginning of the episode and our introduction to Osha and May. So what do we think is going on with them? Not really in like the larger mythological sense yet, but just as as siblings. Osha seems to be a little more independent. May is a little more clingy. How did you feel about their relationships?
I very realistic for siblings, if you know what I mean. Like there's some tension there. They're kind of arguing even when their mom, whenever their mom turns her back, they're like, oh, let's go and push each other around. So I did like that. I'm also, I guess, interested to, as you said, learn potentially May's side of the story, because I don't know, I could sort of, she said, what have you done? And that's jumping ahead a little bit, but it sort of gives an impression that May thinks this is her fault for being something, right? So I don't know, I'm curious.
Real quick, am I the only child here, or is everyone else going to relate to this episode a lot more?
Yeah, I think it's just you, Alex.
Okay, cool. Well,
yeah,
I
the
did
moment
think about
where they
Molly,
have to say "I love you" to each other. You said, what was it? You said
put on your get along shirt or whatever.
Put on the friendship shirt. Yeah, that it was very true to sibling life.
Well, especially when things get more heated between them, I thought of stories you've told me about your sister and how you two would chase each other around the house with big heavy ashtrays that you're throwing at each other. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
These sisters are pretty intense.
We terrorized each other.
My dad and his brothers would shoot Roman candles at each other when they were growing up. So
well, that's just fun.
I mean, I do think you bring up a very relevant thing, which is that siblings are often kind of terrible to each other, right? I've seen people call the way that May talks to Osha at the end of the episode like a turn, like this dark, and it's like, I don't know, you shouldn't tell your sister you're gonna kill her, but it's
people
not
do.
Insane. Like, she's clearly May is going through something. May is having this really distressing fear response. May needs to have some time apart from Osha and maybe go to witch therapy. But she's, I don't know, she's 8, right? I know that didn't surprise me as much as I think it did some other people. I was like, of course, May is this person who is all in on their sisterly relationship. She feels like Osha is a part of her, which Osha doesn't kind of reciprocate. Osha's getting to this point where she sees herself as her own person. And yeah, I don't know. I think May's response is over the top, but really understandable for such a young child.
I agree. I've seen plenty of hung out with a lot of my friends who had brothers, and they would yell at each other just like that. So I didn't blink twice at that or think that May was becoming evil. I really feel bad for May at the end of the episode, where the Jedi break into her home, turn her sister against her for all she knows, or I could see her blaming them for that, and then she seems to know more about what happened than Osha did. and then thinks that they also killed her sister. So like she's just fully grief stricken. I felt real bad for May.
Yeah. And children can be really creepy sometimes and say some really weird stuff. And as she's like 8 at this point, she's kind of, I feel like she's, testing those waters of, okay, well, if you're not going to do what I want you to do, I'm going to kill you. Like, she did say it in a very dark way, but it reminded me of Step Brothers when he's like, what are you doing? I'm burying you. Like, that's
well, it's like
just
a
what I'm
hunting
doing.
community, right? Life and death is this thing that they're somewhat comfortable with. And I don't like that. Again, I don't endorse it, but I don't know. I'm going to kill you just does not. Whomst among us has not said something like that to your sibling? I guess Alex hasn't, but
yeah, I just thought it
only
was a young
saint
girl.
present.
I thought it was just a young girl throwing a tantrum, and I still think it's. We can jump ahead a little bit. I think it's interesting that we don't see May really start the fire. We see her burn a book, but then it cuts away and follows Osha, and then she turns around and the fire's huge. And so part of me already wonders if there's something more to learn there. Maybe May just got scared and dropped the book and, oh, oops, that was a big mistake. Or I wonder if something else happened that we haven't seen. I just think it's an interesting edit to look away.
I was curious about that as well.
This real quick, this super chat. Nice to see a rare sighting of paper in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Everything's
it is
always
definitely
on like a tablet.
paper because it burns.
Yeah.
It's not like fake paper plastic like they talk about in the book sometimes. Flimsy plast, I think.
But Sophia, you said you also thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it was just sort of like a weird continuity break, which sort of left me wondering if there was more going on there. Because like it was kind of jarring, right? Like 1 second she's just, sort of lit this kind of diary on fire, and the next, like the entire door is burning and she's trying to escape the room. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Maybe I'm looking into it too much, like just because it's a mystery and I might be looking into things that I want to have more answers for, when really it is just like, yep, I started a fire. And maybe she really did go above and beyond in wanting to kill Osha. But it's like, if that were a cut and dry, yes, May started the fire, I wonder why they didn't show that happen.
Well, I mean, it's not the only sort of weird sequencing in that end. Jack the Seven in the replies says suspiciously flammable building, and it's like, yeah, this is this event that goes from obviously like dangerous to catastrophic. Osha escapes her room, and there's this like shot where you hear witches screaming and see the building like shake, like the mountain shaking. And then there's this really weird cut where she's kind of heading out of the tunnel, and then it cuts to her like out of the tunnel. And that might just be a strange editing decision, that is possible. Again, you can read too much into stuff, but I don't personally think this is the case, but someone in our Discord actually said that, maybe like Osha got Jedi mind tricked or something. And while I don't think that's necessarily the case, I do think there's like precedent for it in the episode, right? Mother Coral mentions to Osha that she could have gotten mind tricked earlier on. So there's like that sort of writing, like tight writing choice that would work. But it just all comes together to form this picture of a situation that gets out of hand way too quickly for the like actual impetus that we see.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to bring another super chat up here with the way May acted before burning the book and how she acts in Osha's visions. I think someone is creating illusions to distort her perspective. So that could be some sort of mind trick, or we had talked about the possibility of her being under the influence of the dark side. Maybe there's already like a presence of a Sith character there that we don't know about or we don't see. So
In
there
episode
could
3.
be in episode 3, yeah. There could be a lot of different things going on there.
We can save all the talk about what really happened for the end, but like to keep it about May and Osha, I do think it's strange that she started seeing these visions all of a sudden of her sister she thought was dead, and in the first 2 episodes, and I'm like, is this a not a Snoke situation, but is someone sending these visions to her? Because I kind of thought May was doing it at first, but then
It doesn't feel like it's May.
well, May is like, oh, Osha's alive. She didn't even know Osha was alive until episode 2. So I'm like, where are these visions coming from? Could just be the Force, but it's interesting.
Doesn't really seem fair. It feels like May should get some visions too.
Yeah. Well, maybe the fact that May has decided to go and officially start killing these Jedi, maybe that's her pulling or pushing at the thread. And that
great
is
segue, Molly. I was going to talk about the thread next. Well done.
That is kind of triggering the connection between the two sisters.
I like that. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the thread and the coven and their belief system surrounding the Force, which I think in the bigger, broader sense, it's very much what Obi-Wan tells Luke, that, it binds us all together. It connects us to one another. I'm like, if the coven and the Jedi just sat down and had a little chat, they'd probably get along. But what did you think about the thread and this new perspective on the Force, Sophia?
I was really interested, of all things, to kind of see Force wielders acting in unison, or Force users acting in unison, right? Because we normally see like one person doing it, but all these people were kind of using it together, and that seems to produce like a really sort of spectacular result. And it is also interesting how they talked about Osha and May being bound together or tied together by the thread, if you will. Are they like a dyad in the Force, maybe? I don't know, but that was something I was thinking about.
We'll definitely talk theories on that.
Yeah, I've seen a few people bring up the dyad.
Uh-huh. Ellie, what did you think of just the idea of the thread?
I mean, this is something that has existed for a while in Star Wars, but like specifically in the setting, having different Force religions is really relevant to the High Republic. The High Republic Phase 2 has a lot of different very active Force religions. Like one is the primary antagonist of that setting, but others are just kind of there. And so one, getting to explore like different forms of the Force, just in a live action show feels really special. But two, yeah, I agree with you, Alex. There is this element of like, nothing the witches are doing or saying is, from my perspective, that objectionable. The only thing, like, Mother Anasea is like, we have been persecuted because people say that what we do is dark. And it's like, okay, why? You like, what is the thing that people don't like? And maybe it's just people have an incorrect idea. Specifically, Mother Coral is worried about the way in which May and Osha were created. From my perspective, I have a hard time taking issue with like Force lesbian IVF. That feels fine to me. So it's like, I don't know. These ladies seem okay. There's clearly like, why were they exiled? What Republic law binds them? Is it a law that says that Force sensitive children have to be trained? That doesn't seem true. So it's got to be, maybe it's something else. And so either we have no idea what this coven is like, or the Jedi have no idea what this coven is like. And they are coming at it from this perspective of assuming that these people are dangerous when they are just people. And that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're practicing the Force in a way that the Jedi don't know about and they're not even attempting to get to know how they're practicing their religion. They're just there, where are the kids? You can't do that. You can't homeschool your kids like that. They need to come with us.
I definitely think there's more to learn about the witches. Just the way this series has gone, I think they're going to keep presenting two sides to every person and organization. But yeah, so far, I'm like, okay, they wear dark robes, they cast spells, they chant. It seems kind of spooky on the surface. So, like, after the Sith Wars, maybe there was like a literal witch hunt, and they just the galaxy at large tried to hunt this group down, and they went into hiding. Like, but really, all they wanted to do was practice their own religion. Now they definitely have some darkness. The only thing they did that was dark side to me was take over Torbin's mind. Once the Jedi were kind of threatening to take Osha away. So like I understand why Anastasia went that far, but I'm like, okay, that's not chill.
It was a little spooky, yeah.
Once you're taking over someone's ability to control themselves, I'm like, okay, that's dark side.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, I mean,
also,
it's definitely. Oh, Molly.
no, go ahead.
please.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, it's like in the direction of witchcraft that we've seen before in the series. Like it does have this distinctly like witchy kind of Nightsister vibe to it. It's way less grisly than like any of the stuff we see them doing otherwise. But we have to consider the fact I feel like I'm advocating for violence against home intruders, but we have to consider the fact that the Jedi broke in. Like these are agents of the state that are outside, you know, whether or not the Jedi like that fact, they act on behalf of the Republic, that are outside of their jurisdiction, breaking into this community's compound, like breaking into where they live. Like they are already starting off on like a foot of hostility and of antagonism.
Yeah, that jumped out to me too when they were like, they sliced into the platform. I'm like, they just hacked into your house. That's not cool.
Yeah. I definitely think this episode did a great job at making you question both sides. You're questioning the Jedi, you're questioning the witches. When I first watched the episode, I was like really angry more at the Jedi and thinking that like these people are not doing anything wrong. They're just minding their own business and the Jedi come barging in, blah, blah, blah. But the more I kind of study the episode and like when Mother Anastasia and Coral are talking about how the twins were created, I do wonder if Mother Anastasia used the dark side, was working with the Sith or something to create these kids, because Coral says like, what happens if the Jedi find out what you did, what you did to create them? And that caused a lot of tension. So I'm like, what did she do? Like, it's got to be something the Jedi wouldn't approve of.
That's why I kind of hope that the next time we see these flashbacks, it will be more from the Jedi perspective and maybe start before Sol is even spying on May and Osha. Just because I do want the breaking in and entering to seem less egregious. Like maybe there is more to learn about this coven and they're not quite as benevolent as they first seem. And maybe they are doing some really gnarly stuff with the Force. But right now, just what we were presented, I'm like, okay, this looks pretty rough for the Jedi.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people bring up this idea that Coral could be a Sith infiltrator that came into the coven early on, influenced Mother Saya into the idea of like creating these twins. I don't know. It seems a little far-fetched to me, but at this point there could be a lot of different things going on. I do kind of like the idea though that the Sith have something to do with how they were created.
I don't know if I want that yet. Like I kind of dig the idea that it's not just the Sith who are interested in influencing the midichlorians, that the witches could have done it on their own. Also, before we dive into theories and stuff, like that's caused a big old kerfuffle. And I'm like, we don't even know that that's the truth. When she says the twins have no father, it's like, that's what she's telling the Jedi. But who knows? I do think something mystical and weird is happening. But like everyone got all up in arms about the Chosen One and Anakin and stuff. And I'm like, we don't even know the truth yet. Like, everyone calm down.
Well, when
It's a
it's
very-
just Mother Anastasia and Coral talking, Mother Anastasia is like, I created them, and Coral's like, I carried them. That wasn't them talking to the Jedi.
Right. But Sophia, what?
I was lost my train of thought, so go on.
Oh, sorry.
Molly, yeah, that's a good point. That there is definitely something mystical and weird happening, but everyone immediately jumped to like, it's just like Anakin. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I think it's going to be something different.
Well, and even if we're like looking for a misdirect, I'm not saying that I think they're going to go this direction. This is a coven of exclusively women that includes trans women. So you cannot have a father and still exist from this setting. You can still have kids there. And so like you're right, Alex, we don't know what any of this actually means.
It all just kind of reminded me of Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 2, and the Grand Inquisitor got stabbed, and everyone was like, how could this be? And I was like, can we just watch the rest of it and see what happens? Like, oh, is he still alive? Oh, go figure. So just maybe it will all be explained in future episodes. Hopefully
Yeah.
it is something
Maybe.
that we all feel is satisfying, but I'm
Right,
like,
that's not never a guarantee, but it's
Right.
like people who write things do think about the things that they write, right? I don't know.
Yeah. And because you brought it up, I do think, do you guys want to touch on the fact that there was so much outrage at this cheapening Anakin somehow? Because that was rampant on Twitter today. And I just was like, it was not computing in my head where people were getting their wires crossed for that.
it just doesn't.
I
So
don't-
because Anakin
yeah.
was made that way. Okay, go ahead, Sophie.
Go ahead,
I
Sophie.
don't understand like why that has necessarily like anything, why that would be a problem for Anakin. Like him being, the virgin birth or whatever is still, extraordinary, even if it happened this like other time. And presumably in Anakin's case, it was the Force that did it and not, a Force user. So I don't know. I would be curious why that would cause problems for the chosen one narrative, I guess.
Well, I think a lot of people may think that Anakin was created on purpose by
Plagueis and
Palpatine or
Sidious.
Plagueis, and
Yeah.
but I don't think that's true.
Well, the way it's described in the novel Darth Plagueis is that they were manipulating the Force, pushing it to go darker, and the Force, in reaction to that, sought balance by creating Anakin. So they weren't actively trying to make a child. They were doing something else and inadvertently caused Anakin's creation, and they were both like, oh, oops, well, that could be important, like let's try to get him on our side. So this I don't think is that, like that was the Force creating Anakin, and this seems like people actively trying to create life, or I think there might be something to the fact that their rhyme says always one but born as two. Like,
Mhm.
were they originally one child and Anastasia forced them to be twins? Or I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much more to discover, but the idea that something is introduced and because it was Anakin, now that concept can never be used again is so limiting, and I don't understand it.
And I see people in chat talking about the Vader comic implying Palpatine had a hand in it.
And that's comic, like Matt Martin has actively, and Charles Soule have said that was not the intent of that frame. Like that one image, they've said that's not what that was meant to be.
But it is very
Right. I mean,
much like the Sith to take ownership of that. They're like, oh
Sure.
yeah, this happened, and that was totally my plan all
We did
along.
it.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just Sith. It's like Palpatine's whole thing. He's like, oh, I was planning for that. This was my doing, actually. I have it all mapped out. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, that happened like 10 years before you were even on the map. Like,
Yeah. It's this whole thing of like just the specialness of Anakin, and he definitely is. He is the chosen one. But then
He will always be our special boy. No lesbian witches can take that away from us or him. It's just still silly.
But
I
like,
think there is.
Oh, go ahead, Ellie.
I think there is a certain subset of the fandom that is especially precious with Anakin. And part of that is that he is a lot of people's favorite character. That's perfectly fine. Anakin's a fun character. I get liking him a lot. But I think there are other people that kind of view Anakin, Vader is this through line through the prequel trilogy and through the original trilogy. They see him as core to their idea of Star Wars and get really attached, like kind of more as attached to him, if not more than to someone like Luke, as a symbol. And when that symbol is encroached upon by women, we saw this years ago. People didn't just get mad. People didn't get mad that, it was Rey's lightsaber instead of Luke's lightsaber. People got mad that it was Rey's lightsaber instead of Anakin's lightsaber. Like, that's kind of where people see the threat coming from. And so when you feel like your toy is being taken away and you have, maybe a very short fuse when it comes to a specific type of person, then you're going to probably overreact when you feel like that territory is being pushed on. When what the Acolyte is doing here is iterating on an idea that we have seen in the fandom. Like, even if Osha and May were not, some sort of quasi-force-influenced immaculate conception, that's still what this is suggesting, right? That's still playing with the idea that a lot of people have that Anakin comes from a certain place. Like, it almost feels like a reference to that fear of Vader's from the Charles Soule Darth Vader comics. Like, it feels like it's playing on those expectations, whether or not that's the reality. Like, we're just seeing Star Wars iterate upon itself. This episode is in dialogue with the Phantom Menace, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's a lot of people that don't know how to share. They were never taught how to share.
Well, it happened when it was said that there's more than one chosen one, and like Anakin is the chosen one of prophecy, but like it was said, Luke is also a chosen one, and so was Leia, and so is Rey, and so has Ben Solo, and like the Force chooses people when it is necessary, and people got mad at that. When George Lucas was like, he's talked about his initial plans for the sequel trilogy, and he was like, I was going to make Leia the chosen one. Like, he doesn't treat that stuff as precious as some other people do. But
yeah,
I
love hearing George talk about what he's created, because he's just like, yeah, I don't know, I did this thing and I could have done it this way, but I don't know. It is what it is.
I like the way you put it, like just iterating upon ideas that have been introduced. And yeah, why can't ever explore the idea of Force created life ever again because Anakin has sole ownership of that? Like, that's it's just making Star Wars small and limited.
Yeah,
and I want it to be
really
large and weird.
It's putting it in a box. But we can move on if you want. I just wanted to like talk about that because it was bugging me.
Okay, so let's kind of stick with that a little bit and just theorize on the twins. Like Sophie, you brought up the dyad earlier. How do you feel about that? That maybe they were trying to create the dyad?
Well, I mean, we know from sort of the sequels, right, that a dyad in the Force is like a very powerful thing. It creates powerful Force users. And so is the coven plotting its revenge for whatever happened to it? And like a great way to help with our revenge or help with our resurgence is to have these powerful Force users. That's sort of where my mind went.
It's the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, it's the Bene Gesserit, right? They're creating the Star Wars quits at Cataract. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I had that idea earlier today. I was like, they kind of remind me of the Bene Gesserit.
I do like the idea that maybe that they definitely seem like they're seeking some sort of new power, whether it's a dyad or something. Mother Anastasia said they hadn't done the Ascension since they went into hiding. I think it has something to do with like her own tattoo or marking, because May gets a similar one, that like maybe she is passing on some specific power to them and maybe
Well,
trying
she's
to
like-
amplify it because they're a dyad or something.
She's like the leader of the coven, so I guess I got the impression that maybe she created them because people were maybe questioning her leadership after all the trouble that they had gone through, and she was like, I know what will fix this. I'll have these miracle children to pass on my legacy to, and
No,
then they can run the coven.
Having kids traditionally is a really good way to fix your ailing relationship, I'm told.
So many people do it though.
And what if we made 2 instead of 1? Yeah, good
Right.
idea.
It's extra special if there's 2 of them.
My assumption was that like I saw Mother Anastasia in the pre-release stuff. May's like white marking, I don't know if I can call it a tattoo because it's weirder than that, is visible, like very visible, like made prominent in episode 1. And I assumed that was just a thing that members of this coven have, and that doesn't seem to be the case, right? It is specifically, 1, it's from the Ascension, and 2, it's specific to those 2 people. And so, you know, it makes me think of like, they stress not just the power of many versus the power of 1, but the power of 2. And so maybe if you are imparting this great power or this amount of leadership to, you know, you're ascending to a different place in the hierarchy among the many, over the many, you know, and maybe it is an egalitarian society, maybe thinking of it as over is incorrect, but the idea that that the ascension happens to both of them at the same time, and that there's only one person that has this marking, and it is to become 2, makes me think of like the things they are saying in the chant. It feels like there is something else going on.
I wonder if this is something that like could eventually have continued on to not just be Anastasia, Osha, and May, but like maybe it's something that only one person has the power to do, because we do see Anastasia is powerful. Like she can take on 2 other witches at once and still push them back. So like when the moons are aligned, maybe she can bring up these children and they can ascend. And then next time the moons are aligned, now you have 3 people who can ascend, maybe 6 people. Like you can just keep growing in that way.
Witch pyramid scheme, basically.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there's some connection to like if I keep bringing up this theory and I think it's pretty far-fetched, but if there was like a Sith infiltrator kind of like planting these ideas into this coven, if they were like, hey, this rule of 2 is pretty cool, should make 2 of them. If it's connected.
Just like I think
why don't
the semiotics of the semiotics of the number 2 are really neat. Like it's really good for magic, and I think you would really benefit from that. And if you think about it, guy in the basement.
But what do I know?
What do y'all think of the possibility that the Sith might be involved at this point in the story?
It would be interesting. I honestly wasn't expecting the Sith in this series just because, well, that wasn't my expectation, but it would be cool. I mean, as sort of a motivating force for all the weird stuff that's going on.
I mean, either the Sith are already involved later on in the timeline, or it's some kind of other dark side offshoot. It's probably the Sith. Leslie Headland has talked about the Sith, but I would be disappointed if they were involved this early on. I think it makes more sense for their relevance to be, well, I don't know. I think for the most part, for the way we understand the story so far, it makes more sense for Osha and May and Sol to all be kind of wrapped up in this terrible event that happened because of choices made by these like institutions, by these communities. And I think it makes sense for the Sith to kind of be especially opportunistic around that, to take advantage of the Jedi, the mistake of the Jedi. Like the Sith taking advantage of mistakes the Jedi make on their own is a time-honored tradition. And I I don't know. I think I would be disappointed if it was if the show ends up taking the agency away from these characters that I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying them make bad decisions because I
Yeah.
think it's complicated. I think that simplifies it too much. I would survive if they do end up doing that. It would be fine. But
That is very true, though. It kind of takes away from the whole idea that, you know, who was in the right, who was in the wrong, the Jedi or the coven. If the Sith were the third party, kind of like pulling all the strings the whole time, it would feel kind of like Palpatine and Rise of Skywalker. You know, it'd feel like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, again, it reminds me of like people asking if the Sith have been influencing the Nile and the High Republic, and I'm like, I kind of just like the Nile as their own thing. And yeah, the Sith will definitely take advantage of it, but I like Markion Ro having his own agenda and not having to be manipulated by anyone else.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not as though the Sith, this is like the first time we've seen them doing something like this, right? Because I would imagine that the Trade Federation was probably having some sort of, you know, aggressive intentions anyways, and Palpatine kind of comes in and uses that to his advantage. So it would be sort of in character for them almost.
well, yeah, I mean, we do, again, we see Palpatine taking credit for things that he had nothing to do with. Like, sure, maybe Snoke connected Kylo Ren and Rey. Did he, though? They're still connected in the Rise of Skywalker. Like, it just kind of seems like they're close. I think when you are a guy who overestimates your own power, you take credit for stuff and you swoop in and you're like, oh, you fail upwards. Like, I think that's just kind of how the Sith operate. And I think that's really appropriate for them. But I think to throw them in the mix or to treat them as if they are ultimately responsible for everything, as if the galaxy is not complicated and doesn't have multiple powerful actors like kind of butting against each other constantly, is, I think, overly simplistic in a way that takes away from the narrative. Mother Anastasia, like, I don't want to take anything anyone says. I want to take things that people say in the show with a grain of salt, but she says it's not about good or bad. It's about power and who is allowed to use it or something. Who is allowed to use it. That's what it says. And I think she's right, at least for this specific story, this specific episode. It's not about the fact that the Coven is good and the Jedi are bad, or vice versa. I think that is a reductive way to look at the way they are treating one another. I think it is a reductive way to look at how they both relate to the Republic. It's about the fact that the Jedi have, because they are integrated into the state, they have a monopoly on political power. And the Coven have none. And maybe they're trying to get more. And maybe the reason they're trying to get more is because they want to do harm, or they're willing to do harm to do it. You know, they don't have to be good people for that. But that's not the question. We're not trying to ask, are they good or bad? We're trying to ask, is what they're doing fine? And what the Jedi do isn't fine. If the Sith are behind it all along, then of course they're bad. The Sith are bad. Like, it's hard to say if the Jedi are good all the time, but it's easy to say the Sith are in the wrong.
Yeah.
I like that. And yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the Jedi more, and the quick mention of like Republic law says you can't train, like Molly said, you can't homeschool your kids. But like, what, the Jedi? Yeah, the Jedi have a monopoly on training force sensitive kids. Like, that seems strange.
Well,
I said in our commentary, or maybe it was before that, I was talking about how the Jedi were giving me telemarketer vibes. Like, they got a comeback for everything. And you're like, all right, let's do the test, whatever.
Yeah, like, what if the child tries to lie? Trick them. Okay, got it. What if the child says this? Like, okay, turn to page 37. You just have to have the courage to say what you want. And like, I do think that, I don't think Soul was manipulating Osha. I do think that's what she wanted. But yeah, Molly, it just felt like they had done this so many times. They knew what needed to be said.
Yeah, it's so regimented that it seems like there's not a lot of wiggle room for them.
I I want to like gently push back on the idea that the Republic law line, that we have any idea what that's about. Because so the line is, we're concerned that you're training children. This is specifically about the coven. Republic law states, and then Indara is cut off. She says, Brendok is not a part of the Republic. So one, we know that like Republic law could either be referring to anyone training children or specifically this group training children. Maybe this group
Fair.
has done something wrong with children in the past. Maybe they misused young Force users or something. That is possible. If Republic law does say that Jedi have a sole right to like the ability to train people, like that seems bad. That seems wrong. If that is what is the case, I am very uncomfortable with that. But we don't actually know. We don't know the end of that sentence. There is what Master Indara says later, which is she says, you cannot deny that Jedi have the right to test potential Padawans with your permission, of course. That does feel weird, but that's not the same as law mandating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good point. That I am jumping to the conclusion that like, oh, I guess I'm just going to finish Indara's sentence and that Jedi are the only people that can train children. Which, yeah, in a galaxy full of Force religions that, a couple hundred years ago, they were in a convocation with on Jeddah, like that seems like a jump that they would have made for no real reason.
A very sort of concerning entanglement of church and state in the Galactic Republic, apparently.
Maybe she was going to say like Republic law dictates that all children students get a free lunch and we're just here to make sure they're getting their lunch. Like that could have been it.
Well, and it's like there is that side of it where it's like, the Jedi might not be there for ill intent, but also they broke in. What are they doing on the planet? They thought it was uninhabited? Sure you did. Like, what is the game they're playing? Why are the Jedi there? Should the Jedi be there in the first place? Because even if the Jedi don't specifically have like mandate under the law to be the sole people to train Force sensitive children or whatever, that would be insane. I guess it's possible, but that would be wild. Even if that is not the case, they are still kind of overstepping their bounds, right? As far as what we know, like they are here and they are breaking and entering and they are kind of going up to another religion and being like, your kids are ours, actually, just in case. And make sure you send the other one too, because we want both of them, not just the interested one. We want to test both of them. And it really feels like we lack context because the Jedi do not come off well.
Yeah, and Sol is obviously there spying on them. So it's like, yeah, they're flat out lying, saying like, oh, we didn't know you guys were here. Like,
we thought we hacked into an empty house.
It's really a bad look. So like, why was Sol there spying on them in the first place? Did the Jedi get a tip for the coven being there? Like, why are they so interested?
Yeah, I'm hoping that the next flashback is just let's see it from their point of view. So hopefully the whole episode we're going like, oh, that's why they did that, and like, oh, okay, and hopefully it makes more sense. But I wanted to bring up Osha and her desire to leave, and specifically Anastasia. I really liked her moment with Osha, like encouraging her to face her fears and stuff. Do you think she is being genuine in that moment? Because I thought she came off very well as like a well-meaning mother, but we don't see what happened later. So I'm wondering if she was just saying that for Osha's benefit, or how does everyone feel about that?
I agree. It did come off very genuine. Like, I don't know if it's just because we have an unreliable narrator there, but like I was thinking like, wow, she is such a sweet mother. Like, these kids are going to come out all right.
Yeah, I got the idea that she was being genuine, but by the end of the episode, I was like, there's so much we didn't see happen. And she really seems like she's pouring a lot of the future of the coven into both of these kids, and maybe she's afraid that it won't work out if it's just May and not both of them. So I will be curious to see if she was just comforting Osha for the time being and never had any intention of actually letting her leave, which would be really dark. But everything about this show is like, we're going to show you this, but it's actually this. And I don't know.
I'm also inclined to take Anastasia at her word, at the very least, because she talks to Osha and she's like, if you make your own destiny, you can choose to pull at the thread if that's what you want to do. But Osha's like, I want to be a Jedi. And Anastasia is like not happy about that, but she does kind of understand where Osha's at. She does kind of respect that. Now, that doesn't mean that she wants Osha to go. She says that she's going to talk to the community, right? If it is possible that if Anastasia were just kind of, lying, just trying to pacify Osha, why not just say that she can? And then something bad happens to the Jedi. Why say we will take your opinion into account, but I need to talk to the group about this? I genuinely wonder if one of the reasons why the Jedi are present in the compound at the end of the episode is that maybe Coral goes off on her own after Anastasia talks, on her own with a group of scouts or whatever, after Anastasia talks to the group. Maybe there is like this schisming of the different perspective of these parents, because that is what Coral and a group of people were going to do when the Jedi first show up. They were like, okay, we're just going to go kill them. And Anastasia and Abigail Thorne character were like, no, we can't do that. The Republic will kill us for that. And yeah.
I could definitely see Coral being the loose cannon of the bunch. I mean, she was the one who's like, I will not let our children be taken away by some deranged monks. Like,
Yeah.
she was wanting to fight, and I don't think she's gonna let Osha go very easily. I'm hoping I really hope Anastasia is genuine, because I thought that was such a nice moment. And so like maybe we'll see the coven turn on her in the next flashback.
And like I don't know, Anastasia is not just a pushover. She is willing to say, hey, you are not supposed to be here, Jedi. But I also think that she is coming at it from this perspective of like a community leader, where she is trying to look after her children. And these 4 Jedi rolled up and were like, we kind of want your kids. And it's like, no, these are my children. Like there is a degree of just kind of, she is protecting her own that I can't help but understand. Same with Coral.
Yeah, and I don't think if Anastasia told the Jedi, no, you can't take her, I don't think they would take her by force, even if Osha does want to go. I sure hope that when Jedi go out and seek children, that you need the kid and the parents' consent to take them. I mean, that's how it's even presented in the Clone Wars, when when Cad Bane is kidnapping kids. He has to like hypnotize that Rhodian woman, but he does like have to get permission, kind of.
Yeah.
I wonder. I agree that the Jedi probably wouldn't take these kids. One, again, I keep coming back to the fact that they just kind of arrive on the Coven's doorstep. But for me, it's like they don't have. It doesn't have to be that the Jedi would take May or Osha. It has to be that the Coven believes that they would. The Coven believes that the Jedi would or could get violent. And when the Jedi come knocking on your door and cite Republic law, and you're already kind of on the rocks, and they're like, you're not supposed to have children here, then of course you think that they're going to either attack you and or take your kids.
And at least one witch definitely yelled about it. And Soul had to be like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like how this actually functions in the Republic is parents notice and parents believe, there it is a cultural thing, but parents tend to believe that a kid will be better off with the Jedi. Like the Jedi are sometimes the cops, but the Jedi are not just the cops. They're not just people who take children away. They offer this opportunity to kids who are different. Are Osha and May different because they were created in a different way? Maybe. Are they different just because they're force sensitive children? Also, maybe. Like, that is a difficult way to grow up. It is difficult not to be around people like you. That's what Osha was excited about when talking to Soul. So it was like, there are tons of Jedi kids, and that blew Osha's mind. Like, the Jedi do not exist for no reason.
That made me so sad when she was, because she does seem so lonely, and she was like, there's other kids there. I was like,
Other kids that aren't my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor thing. Ugh.
I like that it made me feel sorry for Osha and May, because May
And
has that
May.
moment of just like, everything I need is here. And then at the end of the episode, it's all gone.
Yeah.
Osha is sick of May, and that's got to feel terrible from May's perspective. Like, Osha freezes the butterfly in midair, but when May does it, it's a problem. Like,
Mhm.
Osha will not give May the time of day. And I don't know, that's got to be so isolating for May, but May still tries to make it work. And so when Osha's like, no, I'm going to go off on my own, it's like world shattering to this 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't know, poor kids.
That's kind of why I think that maybe they were forced into being twins. Like Mother Anastasia used magic or the thread to make them twins, and maybe it just split them down the middle of one is super clingy and one can't wait to leave. And that explains their drastic differences in personality.
I do believe this
Could
could
be.
be a misunderstanding, but so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure if you literally physically split like a zygote at a certain point, you can essentially create identical twins. So, which seems like the most crude possible way of using the Force to create life, but
Yeah.
it's not. I don't know if that would literally obviously in a real world setting that would not divide personality traits or anything, but like there might be a sort of destined opposition to May and Osha that isn't just what they kind of have set upon them.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just the end of the episode, the power generator, the fire that killed everyone, that clearly did not kill all those
The
witches.
very
but,
suspicious fire. Yeah.
Right. So what do we think is going on with that power generator? It's just old and running on fumes. It was making noise that interrupted their lesson, or did someone sabotage it? What do we think is going on there?
I didn't really have any thoughts about the power generator. Well, I did notice in my second viewing that it was making some kind of noise or something like that. I don't think I noticed that before.
It kind of pauses their lesson, and Coral goes to look at it, and I'm like, okay, there is a reason they're showing us this.
Yeah. But I just assumed, aside from the very small fire that May starts, whatever happened where the Jedi were caused an explosion with the power generator thing. But also, even that wouldn't have caused all those deaths in all those different places, I don't think. It was very suspicious.
It's very interesting that they thought to like sort of, I wouldn't call it foreshadowing, but to set up that something's up with the generator before it. Like that makes you think like maybe the Jedi do have a nefarious plot here of some sort, or one of the Jedi does. I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely like on the first watch through, I was like, okay, cool, they have a generator. On the second watch through, it is a weird shot of Coral looking at it. Like, it's not really clear why. And I guess it's possible she could have sabotaged it. Again, I don't want to put every bad thing on Coral, but that is a possibility. I also wonder if it was just damaged the same way the fire spread, or the same way the mountain like shook. You know, maybe something happens with Kelnaka, and, you know, big guy that he is, he like damages some kind of underground support structure, or something like that. Like, I think it's not just that a bunch of people died. It's not just that the generator exploded. It's that this fire was already like a problem before the generator happened. There was already something like shaking the compound before the generator explodes. And so I think whatever it would have been whatever that is, which is, you know, retaliation against the Jedi for being on the compound again, or the Jedi coming in to extract the girls because they think the witches are going to get up to something, or what have you.
I think I am under the impression that maybe it's just showing that it's not the most reliable power generator. It's kind of damaged already. And I wonder if the Jedi will, not understanding that, because how could they wind up using the Force on it or around it, and that just causes a chain reaction? Because like there's got to be something that happens where the Jedi have to make a decision that they think is the right thing to do, as Torbin said, that causes problems. Like I don't think that they're all going to whip out their lightsabers and kill all the witches going, oh, this is the right thing to do. I think there's going to be, I hope that they're put in some sort of impossible situation that ends in terrible tragedy that isn't really fully their fault, but maybe a little bit.
Well, we see in trailers, we see Kelnaka going to attack Torbin with a lightsaber. It's a very quick shot, but he's like jumping and like about to attack Torbin. So I'm thinking some more mind control is going on.
If we're going to jump into trailers, yeah, I think that is. I kind of, just in my headcanon, I hope the way it plays out is that they, like, one person tries to control Kelnaka, and then they have to like join hand. They need the power of many.
Power of two, power of many.
Yeah, to take over Kelnaka. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's going on there, but for Kelnaka to turn like that and attack Torbin, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And a lot of people are saying that Torbin probably got all torn up from Kelnaka's claws, which
and to go like
can I ask a question?
Deep.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry, Alex. Can you finish what you're saying, please?
Oh, I was just gonna say, to go like deep nerd lore. You know, Torbin has, you can see the claw marks on his face at the end of the episode. So if Kelnaka uses his claws to hurt Torbin, that's a big no-no in Wookiee culture. And so, like, if he was under mind control, even though I think he'd probably be under mind control, he would probably feel immense guilt over that and go off and live in the woods alone.
Yeah, that's why Kelnaka's gone. He didn't care about the witches.
Yeah.
He just cares about the Wookiee culture stuff.
I have to take the Barash vow because I used my claws on accident. Okay,
I want to ask. I've been thinking about this. Why cover this up from the perspective of the Jedi? What is the motivation? Why lie if you're Soul? Why say May started a fire and it kills everybody? You know, Soul feels responsible. They all feel responsible. Is it to save face? Is it to defend against whatever political enemies Vernestra is referencing in episode 1? Is it just, and this is what I think, I reckon it's just because they feel bad. It's because they don't want to alienate Osha, and they got all of her community killed, and they are people who are attempting to do good. And so they don't want Osha to be in a position where she has literally nothing. Which seems like a much more human reason to not report something like this in an incomplete way, to not tell Osha the whole story. Like, ultimately it's going to harm Osha when she learns whatever happened. But I don't understand why the Jedi are, why, like, we don't have to know what they did. Why cover it up? It's only
Yeah.
a few dozen witches outside of Republic jurisdiction. Are people going to care if the Jedi killed them? I'm not saying people shouldn't care, but are people going to care?
I think it came from just panic. I think a lot of that happened really quickly, and the Jedi were like, oh, this escalated fast, and this was not at all what we came here to do. And Soul, everyone's been saying Soul reminds them of Qui-Gon. Soul is like the ideal picture perfect Jedi. So if he does have that reputation, he might make the split second decision to cover this up for the sake of himself and for Osha, because you can tell immediately he has a connection with Osha and really cares for her and wants to show her the galaxy and other children with the Jedi. And so, yeah, it could be partially protecting her, but also himself.
I think there's got to be something fairly big that they feel shame about. Like, once Osha left the Order, I think Torbin, if they were just hiding it for her sake and Torbin was feeling so guilty about it, he could have told the Jedi Council. But May still is like offering poison or confess your crimes, and he takes the poison. So to me, I think it's got to be something that I still hope it wasn't them just like, let's murder all these witches real quick. but I hope it's something that they tried and failed to do something they thought would help, and it winds up getting everyone killed or something along those lines. And they're like, this is a bad look for all of us. Let's just pretend it never happened.
I want to say Torbin's choice isn't actually between, and because I discovered this yesterday, Torbin's choice is not die or tell the council. It is either you go and tell the council, or you drink this poison and I will forgive you. And I feel like Torbin dies not to hide what they did, but because, I mean, he takes the Barash vow because he feels like he need. God, what was Kymir's line was that the piece that the Jedi believe that they have is a lie, right? That's Sith code stuff, whatever. We can only take that at face value to so much. But what he says is that it's not real. What Torbin needs is absolution.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it certainly
he wants to clear
seems
his
like
conscience.
Yeah, Torbin agrees because Torbin dies for the sake of his conscience, dies for the sake of what he believes is his own mistakes. That absolution line has been sticking out to me ever since I did a bunch of writing just on that idea, because I feel like that's why Torbin did it, because he believed that he would be owning up to it to May.
I think that's a really good point, that it isn't die or confess your crimes. It's confess your crimes or get forgiveness. So I think that's a good point.
I liked how young Torbin was in this episode.
He was so young.
So little.
I very much disliked what they did with his hair and his beard when we first saw him. It was just unfortunate looking. I was like, no, you don't get that hairline from just sitting there for 10 years. But he was pretty stressed out, I guess. But yeah, he looked so much younger.
He was only he'd only taken the vow for like 10 years. He was worried about what was going on for 6 years before he even did that. So
that's a lot of aging in 16 years. Yeah.
16 years. And he's a master. He went from Padawan to master in 16 years. Keeve Trennis coded. I guess it took her like 3, but
there's also the point that he tells May he's been waiting for her. So that's also interesting, that he may have somehow known.
Yeah, because he should think she's dead unless it's like through the Force, which is possible, but...
Or maybe he was just like, I'm going to do this Barash vow thing, and if there's a chance May is still alive. That's the only way I'm coming out of it.
Maybe Torbin sabotaged the generator to like as a distraction, and he specifically feels guilty for May's supposed death.
Yeah, he
Little
was
baby
young,
Padawan Torbin.
and he could have acted out on a quick decision, and he felt extra guilty about it because it was like his first. That was like his first mission out, right? Or is it supposed to be?
Didn't say.
I can't
I
remember.
think Indara just said, "This is my Padawan." Well, I am out of discussion questions. Is there, before we wrap up, is there anything anyone else wanted to bring up? And while people think, I was just going to pop up Jessica Mumford's super chat. Thank you, Jessica. Shouting out Abigail Thorne as my homegirl Eurus, my new Glup Shitto. So I didn't know Eurus had a name. So we've got a name for Abigail Thorne's character.
Nice.
Yeah,
He is a YouTuber.
Yes,
What's her
I
channel?
am
Philosophy
tube.
Tube.
Yes, that's it.
I really like Philosophy Tube. So I was really pleased about this news. There was a rumor about it a little before that, and I was pretty sure because in the pre-release stuff she was behind Mother Anastasia at a point. So I was like, oh, we're doing the like Mother Anastasia stuff. I bet Abigail Thorne is going to show up, and like I recognize her voice before anything, and it was just really, really satisfying to me. Nice to see a trans woman there. Nice to see a trans woman in a coven of witches. That doesn't happen a lot in fantasy. So
Yeah.
that's the good stuff. I was very happy.
It was cool. I was like shocked out of my kind of, reverie of watching the show of like, oh, hey, I know that person. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And while we're just celebrating the witches, Ghost of Breath says, Jodie Turner-Smith. That's it. That's the super chat. Thank you,
She
Ghost
was
of
really
Breath.
something.
She was great.
Mother ate and left no crumbs. That's what the kids say these days. Right?
Just as one last sort of, because because this episode was not about the mystery, I want to ask a question about the present, right? Is this the Jedi's business? Like, should they be involved at this point in solving these murders? Like, and should it be Sol? Like, should they not send another Jedi, or no Jedi? Anyone else from the Republic?
I think Vernestra was kind of thinking that at first. She was like, I don't know. We kind of need, like, you seem a little too close to this situation. But she lets him go anyways. And now she's really trying to pull him back and be like, you're in it too far. This has gone too far. But I really think Sol is trying to get ahead of things to cover his ass.
Yeah. I like Sol a lot, but I'm real worried that he's like, oh, he keeps saying the right things of like, I trained her, I should be the one to bring her in. And like, okay, fine. But I'm like, or he knows what's going on and just wants to get to May first. I could see that.
I think the Jedi, they keep doing this thing, or they keep being in this position that in this show where they have such this sense of justice that they overreach because of it. They are trying so hard to do good that they often kind of go too far, and they often kind of bungle it. And part of that is because when you are tied up, when you are a Republic institution, I don't care what the Living Force says. I don't care what the Jedi Council believes. The Jedi act as an arm of the Republic, right? And when you are acting as an arm of the Republic, as a religious, as this like metaphysically good force, or as this body that cares about being metaphysically good, then your relationship to morality has to be limited to the law. The things that are against the law you generally have to treat as being bad, and the things that are fine, or the things that are outside of your jurisdiction, you have to ignore. And I think the Jedi are deeply good. I think Sol is deeply good. And I think that he is so concerned with his own, like, not with his honor, but with his like perpetuation of the light side, or of balance, or of whatever, that that he's getting involved where he maybe shouldn't be, or he isn't, like, I think it is beyond him. I have a hard time being critical of Soul because he's so he's very likable. I think I have a note on my notepad from the end of this episode, which is, I think a hug from Master Soul would fix me.
He has done nothing wrong in my eyes. I just
Yeah.
I'm worried.
You're
I'm
suspicious.
I'm just a weirdo, and I love seeing the best of the best kind of characters just torn down.
I like good people failing to make good decisions and having to reckon with it. I like stories that are like, it is hard to choose good things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think things are leading. Sorry, Sophie, what were you going to say? Oh,
I just, yeah, no, I just have a bad feeling that something Soul did or is going to do is going to like ruin our whole, like, you know, sort of huggable Jedi that we have now, as Ellie said.
Yeah. Well, Alex has talked about, you know, this idea of killing a Jedi without a weapon. What if all of these Jedi get killed and we're down to Master Soul and he's like the last one standing? And throughout what happens in the rest of the show, he's not necessarily killed, but he is destroyed. Like his reputation, his honor, him as a good person, as a Jedi, is destroyed.
Well, maybe his ability to tell right from wrong, because that seems like one of the most valuable things to a Jedi, right? And if you are trying to do good and what happens instead is, you know, a whole community of people are killed, how are you going to ever trust your relationship to the Force and your intuition? This is why people take the Barash vow, is because they mishear the Force. And that hurts you when you're a person who cares deeply about your relationship to it and your relationship to, like, you know, moral good.
I'm worried for Soul.
I don't feel great.
I'm worried for everybody.
But I agree. I love his smile, and I'd love a hug from him.
He's so sweet.
But
he looked so young and rosy in this episode.
Yeah, his little bowl cut.
Yeah, I like that they just gave Indara bangs.
Yeah.
Oh, they took away one of her eye tattoos, Molly.
Oh yeah, her teardrop tattoo, prison tattoo, whatever you want to call it.
My girlfriend made the joke that they portrayed an accurate time frame in growing out your bangs for both Soul and Indara. Like 16 years, yeah, that probably would work pretty well.
That is true.
Well, I liked, Molly, you were kind of talking about the tattoos, and we were spitballing ideas that it could mean something deeper because she has a second one on Ueda.
Because I did Google teardrop tattoo meaning, and there's just a bunch of different meanings for why people get them. But part of it is grief, part of it is like representing like how long you've been in a prison, and so it could be something really traumatic happened to her in her life and she got the first one, and then whatever happened here with the coven caused her to get the second one.
I kind of like that idea that those tattoos could be like reminders for her to like, oh, let's not make that same mistake again. So maybe it's just to show that time has passed, or maybe there's a reason for it. We'll see.
I hope we don't have to get all the answers, but I hope we get enough that I feel satisfied. That's the only thing that I genuinely think this show could do wrong, is just not give enough answers to its own questions, because it is this water cooler show, right? Where it's wonderful that a show like this is releasing in weekly installments, because we get to talk about it. We get to ask what is going on, what are the character motivations, especially for a story like this, where it's not, like you've said, Alex, it's not a whodunit. It's, why is this happening? What are these people hiding? Who are these people? It's fun to get to talk about that, and I hope talking about that will feel like it was worthwhile.
Yeah, that's the whole. I've said that everything in this show is hinging on just that mystery. And I liked episode 3. It didn't tell us a ton of new information, kind of let us see things in a new light. But whenever we actually get to see, like, okay, why did Torbin take the vow? Why did Kelnaka go off on his own? Like, I hope those answers feel big enough as to how much they're building it up.
I mean, this episode gave us a ton of context, but is it reliable context? We don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I do think
do the Last Jedi thing and turn the camera around, and it's even worse.
I do think that what we saw play out is what happened, but there were missing bits and pieces. We saw Osha hearing screams upstairs, but we didn't see what they were or why. So I think that we saw the truth, but that there's more to it that will change our opinions.
Right.
There's a lot that they didn't show us.
Yeah.
Well, I think with that, we will let the Daughters of Ferrix head out and enjoy the rest of their night. But before we do, tell everyone what your podcast is about, where they can find you, follow you, etc.
Sophie, do you want me to do that?
It's about Star Wars allegedly, but mostly politics.
So Daughters of Ferrix is a show where every 2 weeks we talk about different parts of Star Wars. Plenty of stuff from the films and from the shows, but also from the books, from the comics. We talk about different parts of Star Wars through a real world political, historical, and queer lens. So there is always this so we talk about questions of how is power to be used? What are we supposed to do with, Star Wars makes arguments. Every piece of media makes an argument. What are those arguments? How do we talk about them, et cetera, et cetera? So, we exist to play with that time-honored idea that Star Wars is actually quite political. You can go listen to our show on any of the podcast thing. I don't know. Search up Daughters of Ferrix. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on YouTube. We just to be listened to. But yeah,
links are already in the description, so people can go check it out. Follow. I also put in the episode that Molly and I just did with you.
Ooh.
So we just saw Sophie.
Oh no.
But
maybe your phone died.
That's very possible.
But we were talking about King Arthur and his relation to the High Republic in our episode.
Very fun.
The High Republic, Arthurian legend, John F. Kennedy. Want to do a High Republic episode for today. So hi Miranda here. Good to see you, my friend.
Miranda here says, excited you had Ellie and Sophia on. Daughters of Ferrix are the best Star Wars podcast.
Oh,
yay!
Well, thanks so much for taking some time out to talk Acolyte with us. Also, send our thanks to Sophie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she's very grateful. She just messaged me. She said, "Tell them I say sorry. Wi-Fi troubles are back." So, we're both very grateful. Thank you for having us on. Thank you for coming on to our show. It was a nice excuse to get to really engage with the Acolyte. It's fun to be firing on all cylinders with this show. So,
yeah.
Well, I knew when we were starting to plan this out, I was like, we got to get Ellie, because Ellie is also part of our book club. And every time we're talking about really any book, but I know that you're very well versed in the High Republic. So you're just very well spoken. You bring up a lot of smart, good points, as you did today. So we were grateful to have you both.
Well, thank you very, very much. We're grateful for your time, for your generosity. Thank you to everyone for watching. Shout out to there are people from our Discord who have come to hang out in the chat and stuff. So
good.
I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
Good. Well, have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, take care. And I'll come back and watch from this point forward on my own.
Cool.
Take care, guys.
Right. See ya.
Bye.
We are going to take a quick 1-minute break because this episode is sponsored by Factor. So we're going to do that, probably grab a drink, and answer all your super chats. So we'll be right back. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie-smart, vegan plus veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. What are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. With our hectic schedule, even making a good lunch is difficult for me. Factor's 2-minute meals let you fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. Factor also offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. You can change up your order every week to choose anywhere from 6 to 18 meals, or pause or reschedule your deliveries if things change. There's no prep or mess. Factor meals are 100% ready to heat and eat. Factor is less expensive than takeout and even offers a Gourmet Plus option if you need a more upscale meal for a special occasion. Head to factormeals.com/StarWars50 and use code StarWars50 to get 50% off. That's code StarWars50 at factormeals.com/StarWars50 to get 50% off. All right, we are back, and I meant to bring a couple of these up right at the start because Lord Hosk just said, "Are we bringing you to something?" Thanks, Lord Hosk.
Oh yeah, that would have made sense at the beginning.
Twist on his usual super chat. And Power Rangers Explained says they're listening from work. Hope you don't get in trouble. But let's get into some questions. Callum Reed says, what if the Coven killed Anastasia for suggesting they allow Osha to go? I think her body was separate. Perhaps the Jedi arrived to angry witches.
I mean, there was definitely sort of a divide. Some of the witches were much more upset that the Jedi were there to begin with than others. So it's possible, but I don't know that the Coven would flat out kill their leader over that.
There's definitely, a divide between Anastasia and Coral, but like not a murderous divide, I don't think, / I hope not. Coral is the one with a bit of a stronger hand with the girls, doesn't want to give them spice cream, wants Anastasia to be a little harder on them, and definitely wanted to go fight the Jedi. So I think that she might be the loose cannon that sparks violence, but I hope it's not against Anastasia, but I could kind of see it if Anastasia says that she's going to let him go.
Yeah, I can see it.
Jesus Fernandez says, I'm really liking the story the show is telling, the themes of perspective and regret, but for some reason it feels simplified with a weird tone and clunky dialogue. I wish it went full Andor mode. The show did, however, make me like that. Try the High Republic. I'm about to finish Light of the Jedi. Now what? There's so much content. It's overwhelming. Not sure if there's an order or just whatever looks interesting. I would kind of go with like just whatever is interesting to you, but there is a bit of an order. I know StarWars.com has a reading order. You could go into A Test of Courage or Into the Dark. They're both Phase 1, Wave 1 books. Or if you want to jump straight to The Rising Storm, I love that book, so that would be my recommendation probably. But yeah, glad you're getting into the books.
Yeah, I don't really understand a lot of people saying that the dialogue is clunky, but I guess that's just me. I don't know.
There are a couple of lines that have jumped out at me. Like, I still don't really like Indara's "Yes, my child" at the start of episode 1. There are like little moments like that, but for the most part, the writing has seemed fine to me.
I don't know what full Andor mode means, though. I guess that is top tier dialogue and writing for some.
I mean, that it's still so far, I would say, my favorite Star Wars series. So like, I get it, but I also don't think the Acolyte is trying to be that. Like,
right.
Andor was so much more grounded and stuff. Not to say you can't be weird, but also have like a Luthen Rail monologue in the middle of it.
Sure.
But I think that the Acolyte is trying to lean farther into the pulpy side of things.
Yeah. Which I'm enjoying. Like I said at the top of the show, I like when Star Wars is really weird. There were times when I would watch Andor and forget that I'm even watching a Star Wars show, which is okay. But
I do remember that moment in the third episode or second when the corporate people are coming and it shows hyperspace, and I was like, oh yeah, spaceships,
yeah.
lightspeed, that's right.
We're in Star Wars. Callum Reed has another super chat. I could believe that maybe Sol doesn't know the whole story, and Dara seemed a lot less regretful than the other two who seemingly exile themselves.
I've kind of caught that too, that Sol and Indara are still living as seemingly normal Jedi, but Kelnaka and Torbin are like, we can't deal with this. And I mean, based on the trailers, I think it's possible they could just go through something more traumatic. But yeah, it is interesting to me that two of the Jedi seem like they're totally fine.
Yeah. Well, if it is true that both Torbin and potentially Kelnaka are mind controlled by the witches, that might lead them to need some time off afterwards.
Yeah, I can buy that. Mark White says, so the Jedi killed the whole coven, right? And I've got a feeling this is where Sheev got the whole make a person from the Force idea, yeah? There is a chance for that connection that, you know, the Sith might hear, like, oh, some coven did what? You think we can do that? And then down the line, Plagueis is like, that's what Palpatine says, that Plagueis could influence the midichlorians to create life. And we kind of already talked about this, but that doesn't necessarily mean they created Anakin. George Lucas has said he wanted it to be very vague and up to audience interpretation, but didn't want to specifically say Palpatine created Anakin or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I don't want to bring Palpatine into this whatsoever, even if it is just like, I wonder if he got this idea from this. I'm just like, no.
I can see the Sith listening in, or like maybe if the Sith are involved at this point, maybe they have feelers out and they're like, they've sent a couple people. They contacted this witch coven and the Nightsisters and some other dark side, the Yacomb or something. And they're like, hey, everyone, wouldn't it be neat if you created a person with the Force and then like just tried to figure out who could figure it out?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like the idea that the Sith are around and they're paying attention to stuff like this.
They got their ear to the ground.
Yeah. Julia McSee, no better gift for Pride Month than Sapphic witches in a Star Wars.
What did our friend text you last night? We were driving home or something. Sarah.
Oh.
I just thought it was funny.
Oh, she just was excited about Nightsisters or something similar to that.
Oh, I thought she said something similar to like the...
No, I said I'm all for witchy lesbian shit.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Sorry.
That's what I was thinking of.
That was me. That was all me.
Potty mouth.
But yes,
Should
happy
have
Pride, everybody.
Danamaniac, thanks for the next one. With the way May acted before burning the book and how she acts in Osha's visions, I think we talked about this. Someone's creating illusions. Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, the visions are definitely interesting to me. Matt McDonald, hello, really enjoyed today's ep. Was perhaps naively surprised to see the amount of outrage online. I'm enjoying the ride and loving the mystery.
The outrage for this one is interesting because people who were going to hate this show no matter what, they were ready for this episode. They heard rumors about screeners, about what was going to be in it, and it was like a lot of people were just primed and ready to go to be mad about
Yeah,
this.
It is what it is. Like, you like it, you don't like it, doesn't matter. Like, just don't make it someone else's problem.
Yeah. Star Wars fan 3131. Do you think that the witch clan we saw in the Acolyte have any relation to the Nightsisters? Perhaps they were even started by a former Nightsister. So I specifically asked Leslie Headland about how she kind of took inspiration from the Nightsisters and about the coven, and she was just flat out like, they're not Nightsisters, they're something completely different, but there are some similarities, and there's a chance that the two, have similar practices and maybe borrowed some things. I know the thread made me think of the Great Mothers in Ahsoka. So
It definitely, yeah, I don't think that they're really related to the Nightsisters, but it's possible. I mean, maybe they have like in deep ancient Star Wars history, kind of the way that we have multiple religions, like the Abrahamic religions that have all the same origin point, but they splinter out. Maybe the Nightsisters and this coven have the same origin point way back in the day. But
And-
yeah, Leslie, the word I remember her using was benevolent. Like, they're
Right.
more benevolent than the Nightsisters. So,
yeah, and we saw in Tales of the Jedi that there are different clans of Nightsisters. So yeah, this could be a version of a clan, of a spin-off of a, they're all witches. They're all
Yeah.
cool.
Andrew 711, we don't know the Coven's methods on how they did it. For all we know, they pulled an X-23 on us. Hey, I appreciate you putting Wolverine's clone in parentheses for me. I did know who X-23 was thanks to Logan, but sometimes people just assume that we know a bunch of nerdy things, and I'm like, hey, thanks for telling it to me like I'm a cash, because I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have no idea what the Coven has done, and I think we were absolutely supposed to like sit up and take note at they have no father, and just before that, Anastasia is saying that we were driven into hiding because people said that our power was dark, unnatural, and like some of those words make Star Wars fans take note. So I think it was all on purpose, but it doesn't necessarily mean we know the full truth.
Right. The bald Jedi Kelnaka has head tattoos. Is this a new thing? I also did not realize that those were tattoos on his head until, was it last week when we were filming the Q&A? You told me that, and I was like, oh. And I tried to like zoom in on the image, and it just got really blurry, but they're kind of there. They're hard to see.
They're hidden under a low layer of fur. But yeah, Kevin Scott's Kelnaka comic that is coming out later in the year is gonna tell the origins of his tattoos and why he got them.
That would hurt. Head tattoo.
Dean the Machine, are all non-Jedi, non-Sith female Force users called witches in Star Wars? It hasn't happened a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. No. If you go to like the Convocation of the Force in the High Republic Phase 2, you've got plenty of examples of other Force users who are women who aren't witches. But like we said, could be that they started from an origin point elsewhere, and the Nightsisters and this coven split off.
Yeah. I do just like the term witch, and I think that would get the point across easier to new fans tuning in to the Acolyte. So I understand why they chose it.
Yeah. It's also just something that in our own history, we have these times where there were literal witch hunts over nothing. And so I think it was probably to put us into that mindset of them being persecuted and we don't know why. And yeah, what they're doing is a little spooky, but that doesn't mean it's evil.
Right.
It's just different.
Meg B has the next super chat. Is it possible that the Jedi are being more dogmatic toward other Force religions due to their experience with the Nihil/Path of the Open Hand? That seems like it was so, like the Path of the Open Hand was so long ago that I don't know. It could be part of the reason. The Nihil weren't really using the Force. I wouldn't call them a Force religion.
Yeah, like the Nile kind of shot off of the Path of the Open Hand.
Yeah,
you know, it could be one of those things where like one little thing here and like a drop in the bucket that adds up over time, that maybe eventually they're like, okay, maybe we need to be a little more heavy-handed with other religions. But it does seem like a jump to make. I don't know. They don't really seem that way in the High Republic after dealing with the Path of the Open Hand. So maybe there's something else, or maybe it's just Republic laws, or I don't know. It just could be something. What I would probably expect is that something happens in between the books and now that made the Republic and the Jedi tighten up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the books and comics are going to connect to that.
We are kind of already seeing it in Phase 3. Just the way that the Jedi have started kind of not dumbing themselves down, but like regimenting a lot of things. I don't know.
Yep. Bald Jedi also said, anyone got pics of the lightsabers from the premiere? I want to make a 3D model of yours. I didn't, but I think some people did.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the lightsabers close up. There might be some on StarWars.com, actually.
They did do a lot of the costuming stuff, so maybe they did some close-ups.
Yeah. The costumes in this episode were fantastic. All the coven, all their outfits looked really, really cool. And it did say on the image gallery for StarWars.com that all their like purple robes had to be like custom dyed because the fabric they were going to originally use was too fuchsia, so they dyed everything like this much deeper color purple.
Why was that? Did they say like why they wanted it that deep purple?
I don't think so. It wasn't the color that they wanted.
I don't know anything about color theory, but I'm interested. Oh no, we just talked about this. Irish Nexus. What are we thinking about Indara having a second eye marking in the present before her death?
I knew that someone sent that in and I couldn't find it when we brought it up, but I was looking for it.
But yeah, I do like the idea that it's a reminder of mistakes or something. And then it makes me wonder what the first eye marking was for, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Father Karras, easily overlooked detail with the door set ablaze and Osha is trapped behind, is designed to resemble Vader's helmet, foreshadowing the start of a path that leads to him and linked to the Chosen One prophecy?
Trap.
Could
okay.
be.
Design...
I mean, it has that like shape.
Okay. Designed to resemble Vader's helmet.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. Let me pull the...
I know that I noticed the shape of the hallway is like, that is a shape that they use a lot in Star Wars. Speaking of Star Wars. Hello.
Ah.
I see you. Hi,
Who's
Swagman.
That? Hey, Swagman. So that's what the hallway the door looked like. I'm like, okay,
Okay, yeah,
you got the eye holes and everything. I can see it.
I can see it. I love a little Vader Easter egg in the design.
It's like hidden Mickeys. Now we have hidden Vaders.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Calixto's next. I would have liked if they dropped all the episodes at the same time. They all end very abruptly. The weekly cadence is hurting the narrative flow. This is the episode that I feel like did not end abruptly. Like, I like how this one ended.
This one did feel like kind of a bottle episode, but it's because it was all in the past, I think.
Yeah. The first two, they end with the Sith on the hill. They end with Kelnaka telling everyone to get off his lawn. And I think it's just supposed to show like, hey, here's where we're heading next time. But it does feel a little jarring to me.
Mm-hmm. Star Wars agrees that it looks familiar. So, canon, boom.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Well, there you go, Father Karras.
Kelnaka just wants everybody out of his swamp. That is his swamp. He created it, maybe.
Get off my boat.
Get
Supreme Leader Smeagol says, with the power of one, power of two, power of many chant, is there a connection with the Coven and the pre-Banite Sith? We know from the Malachor Temple, the power of two in the Sith predates Bane. Well, I do think that, like, the rule of two, as in there's just two of us and we're going to be in hiding, that was Bane. But I do think that before then there was still a sense of masters and apprentices and like constantly trying to kill one another to get more power. Whoever was in charge, the Sith wanted to kill them and take the power for themselves, and that was part of their downfall. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's possible, but I think this chant is probably its own thing.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's its own thing. I don't want to take everything that the Coven does and say that they took it from, or that it was inspired by the Sith, or took it from the Sith, or from Nightsisters. Like, they could have their own stuff.
That bald Jedi says, plot twist, it's triplets, not twins.
Oh, there's
it's
a third.
Getting out of hand.
Now there's three of them. That would be a crazy plot twist.
Maddie Gunner.
Hi, Maddie Gunner.
Hey, Maddie says, what if the Jedi's crime was that they saw the fire and didn't stop it because they thought in their hubris it was the Force being put back into balance? I'll say again, I'm just glad to have Maddie back in the chat after he was avoiding everything for months.
That's true, yeah. Welcome back, Maddie. Yeah, if they saw it and then just let it go, that's dark.
I don't think that's what happened, just because no one looked like they died in a fire. There were flames around, but
yeah.
Well,
it's like the fire just needed to get to whatever was, maybe the power generator thing was like leaking or something. Something caused it to explode. So if the fire got to that, it exploded. So maybe the Jedi saw that about to happen and they were like, well, I guess I'll look the other way.
Not like that's so not Jedi though. So
right. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, something bad happened, but I hope that it is, we tried to do the right thing. Like Torbin says, we thought we were doing the right thing, and for whatever reason, like they didn't understand exactly what was happening or what they were doing. The right thing turned out to be the wrong thing. So yeah, again, that's everything kind of hinges on the answer to that mystery for me.
Andrew 711, do you think we'll ever have an on-screen variation of lightsabers like the whip, tonfa, and or the club? Maybe the one for vehicles.
Well, the light whip is coming.
The light whip is coming. That was in the trailers. We're getting Vernestra's light whip for sure. I don't know what the other ones are.
The tonfa was in The Force Unleashed, and Leslie Headland did say that there is another lightsaber variant in this show that's not the whip. So
Yeah,
there is something coming.
That has me really excited. I wonder if that's going to be, if there is another Sith character or dark side character that we haven't seen yet, if they have like some crazy lightsaber.
I would like to see the tonfas in action. They're like,
what do those look like?
I think it's like there's a handle here and then like another rod here. It's hard to describe, but you're like holding on to something and then there's a rod here that you can hit people with and twirl it around. So there's a lightsaber coming out of one end.
I think that makes sense.
I think that's what a tonfa is.
If you read the next one, I'll Google it.
Okay. Bill Rudd, do you think that by running away to the Boonta Tree, Osha was unintentionally calling on the Jedi to find her, similar to Grogu on the Seeing Stone? Not really. I think she just wanted some privacy and independence. I don't think she was necessarily trying to be found and not caught, but like rescued or taken away or anything. I think she just wanted to go outside because that's kind of her whole deal is like, May, don't you wonder what's off Bryndock? And May's like, no, but Osha is more like Luke Skywalker in that she wants a different life. She wants something more than what she has been born into. So I think she was just exploring that.
That is cool looking. They look like almost like riot batons.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, they have like a little handle coming off the base. Cool.
So I could see that. Andrew 711. Now, Luke, if you're bad, the Jedi will come for you. Is that like spooky story Uncle Owen and Amberu would tell him?
That would be, yeah, like
he'd be excited about it.
If there was like a what if series for Star Wars, the Jedi are actually the spooky bad guys and they'll come for you. Ice, thanks for the next one. Episode 3 was not what I expected, but still really great. The story work was incredible and added a lot of good context to the present day events. We definitely don't still have a full picture and there's still more to learn, but I'm really enjoying things. I remain very impressed by the series. I agree. I'm glad you're impressed.
And also says, speaking of trailers, in a very quick shot, you can see Kelnaka's eyes are black like Torbin's. I thought Torbin might just get possessed again, but the idea of Kelnaka under a spell is terrifying. That's what I agree. That, you know, a Wookiee Jedi coming at you would be horrifying.
A possessed Wookiee Jedi at that. Yeah, that would be pretty scary.
But that's what, I'm excited to see Kelnaka in action.
Me too. I'm curious about his lightsaber. It looks cool and it looks giant.
I hope it's, we saw the hilt, but I want it to be kind of like Buryaga's, like a claymore, something huge.
Yeah. Galen Good asks, the Jedi killed the witches, covered it up with fire. Why else was Soul already there?
So I kind of didn't question the Jedi already being there because it looked like Osha was packing up. So I assumed she was just going to be picked up by the Jedi and taken away. And the Jedi were there to collect her. But that's just an assumption I made. So, but yeah, obviously something happened with the witches.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine the Jedi were just kind of awkwardly hanging around waiting for Osha so that they could take her with them, and then a fight broke out or something happened.
Whether
very
it's
quickly.
Coral or if they possess Kelnaka. But yeah, something's going on. Donnie Bravo, I just like that username. Hello, everyone. Just tuned in, but did anyone notice the robed figure by the mother that just stood there and never unhooded themselves when they were doing the ritual? I did not.
I don't.
I've got the images pulled up, so I'm just.
I know some of the witches didn't really show their faces much. There were some like bodyguard type figures around that you couldn't really see their face that clearly.
I can see what they're talking about here. It does look spooky. I'll say that. Give me a second to find it again.
Is it like maybe it's her bodyguards? Maybe they don't have eyes. They don't need to see. So they just keep their hood down all the time.
I just found it, and now I can't find it to upload it.
Just do what I do and pull it up on your phone and
There
show
it
it
is.
to the camera.
I found it. I mean, it does look like a ring wraith. So
It does, kind of.
I just assume it's an extra, or maybe it's their elder that we meet later. Maybe she just like wanted to keep her hood up in the moonlight.
Yeah.
But
Or
could
it's a
be
ring
something
wraith.
spookier, or it's a Nazgul. Yeah.
Ice has another couple super chats here. Maybe the Jedi were investigating claims the coven were kidnapping children. Obviously, that wasn't true, but I feel like the Jedi would be obligated to look into that Republic jurisdiction or not. They may have arrived on Bryndock, saw it wasn't true, but were still suspicious of what they were doing because a mountain compound does give off iffy vibes. Does it? I mean, I did. Okay, so the first time we watched this, I was like, whoa, what is all that stuff? And you were like, it's probably just a power generator. And I was like, oh, okay. I just believed you and didn't think twice about it. But yeah, maybe they were building something crazy.
Maybe it's a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know the full story. And like, yeah, a lot of the witchy stuff I feel like is meant to be spooky on the surface, but presented in a way where it's like, I mean, they believe basically what the Jedi believe. They just practice it in a different way. I think there's more to learn, but for now, I'm like, I don't know. They don't seem so bad. Yeah, they're hiding in a mountain compound, but that's okay.
I like that this show is doing that. It's kind of showing us one thing. We're here saying, you know, we don't think the Coven is doing anything wrong, but then they could show us something that totally flips that around.
Yeah. I think they will. Father Karras, thanks for another one. Episode made me recall the Clone Wars Season 6 arc, The Disappeared. Yeah, it's another Nightsister arc. Re the Bardotans, Degorian seeing the Jedi as kidnappers. They do that. That's the one with Jar Jar and his girlfriend. And and you were like, all this green stuff reminds me of Nightsister magic. And then Mother Talzin came out and you were like, oh my God.
I was right.
You were right.
I'm still so astute. Joel Davis, thanks for the next super chat. The Jedi Republic relationship is still always one of the most confusing aspects of Star Wars. It is something that you may not have questioned, you know, at first, but the more we see stories of how intertwined they are, the more you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Was that right? Should they do that? Is that how that should work?
It's a lot like the Sokovia Accords. It's Avengers Civil War when they're debating whether or not, like, should we answer to a government agent? What if we need to go somewhere and they say we can't? Like, that's what Captain America's whole thing was about, is that we should probably remain separate from the government.
Yeah.
And like, here are the reasons. Some of them. The Cosmic Jedi.
Oops.
With all this deep dive into the Jedi, I'm so excited for what Rey Skywalker's Jedi Order will look like. How will Rey learn from the mistakes of the past and make it better? Exciting. I was just thinking about how, you know, they keep separating Jedi from their families and stuff, and like, I'll never see you again. And it's like, maybe you should let kids go home for the summer. Like, they can just go to boarding school and come back and still check in on their families and stuff.
Yeah, like that is kind of weird that, I mean, I know once the kids go to train with the Jedi, they're supposed to let go of all of their past attachments, which, I mean, yeah, if you go when they want you to as a 4-year-old, you're not going to have that many attachments at that point in your life. But it does kind of suck that once a kid is there, they're supposed to just leave everything else behind.
Well, it's like, I think George, from the big mythical perspective, was trying to, show the dangers of attachments and fear of losing your attachments and stuff, which I get that. But in the real world sense, it's like every kid who grows up pretending they're a Jedi, like they wouldn't want to go leave their family to do that. And I think it's fine that if you just got to train them right, that like, yeah, your family's going to be gone someday, and like, we have to accurately, appropriately prepare you for that. So that's something I wouldn't mind seeing, is like Jedi with families and friends and attachments, but they handle it well.
Yeah, where did Grogu come from? Does Grogu have brothers and sisters that look as adorable as he does? I have to know.
That's all. You just want the Grogu Planet movie.
Gimme. No, that might be too much. He's, you know,
Then Grogu won't be as special. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, I always talk about how adorable Grogu is, but I am not one to be like, show me 1,000 of them, show me the home planet. You know, I like that it's kind of still a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Dan V900, I believe that the Jedi were involved in the deaths of the witches. John Jackson Miller once said that the Jedi Covenant with Vindication in the KOTOR comics was the Jedi Order's Watergate. Here we go again.
I don't think I've read that comic, so that could be a fun one to pick up. I'm actually making my way through the Legends comics right now, so that's fun, but that's a ways off.
Yeah. The Jedi, is that its own series?
There's like an Old Republic comic series, yeah.
Oh.
And John Jackson Miller wrote, I think, all of them, if not all, a lot of them.
Neat.
Babbles the Clown. Hey, all. I'm absolutely loving this series. I love the representation of different Force religions in Star Wars and the vindication of them. It's wonderful. That's something that I really like about what Luke says to Rey in The Last Jedi, of like, if the Jedi die, the light doesn't die. Can you see that? And
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, the Jedi should be around. The Jedi are still a force for good. But yeah, there are other Force users and other, what's the word I'm searching for? There's other valid ways to practice using the Force.
Right. The Jedi don't own the Force. It's
Right.
not something you can own or claim dibs over. Just because the Jedi is like the biggest organized group practicing this particular use of the Force, then they feel like they have the right to bully everybody else sometimes. Even if they don't think it's necessarily bullying.
I don't know if I'd call it bullying yet, but
Not bullying, but
we'll
like
see what the
overpowering a tad. Maybe they feel like they have the right
Mm.
to claim any Force sensitive children. When Indara has that line of like, what does she say? You can't deny that we have the right to test possible Padawans or something like that.
Right.
The way she says it
With
is
your
very
permission.
manipulative and kind of overbearing a
Yeah.
tad.
Miranda here. I love this show as a prequel to the prequel trilogy, and the saga as a whole really flows well into episode 1 thematically and presages Annie's Force conception, Force twins, and the clouding of the Jedi. Do have to say, I wish Disney would be more forthcoming with its implied lesbian moms. It's Pride Month. Just let them kiss already, or at least say I love you or something. Yeah,
Aw.
that's Disney for you.
Yeah.
The kiss in The Rise of Skywalker that was easily edited out across the rest of the world. Yeah. And they let Vel and Cinta hold hands a little bit in Andor.
It'll happen one day. I can only hope that it'll get better. Might take a while, but we're seeing some progress.
Yeah. Read the books.
Read the books. A lot of stuff going on there. Adam, thank you for the super chat. The Jedi could just be there to register the twins as Force sensitive, and that's all. But the aggressive witches take things too far.
Yeah,
I don't know that they could have at least specified, we're just here to register them, give them a special card to keep in their wallet, and then we'll be on our way. But they didn't, did they?
Yeah, and even that it's still weird to be like, oh, you have this power? Well, now you're on a list, and we're going to be watching you forever. But I do think that the next time we flash back, it'll be the Jedi arriving just to take Osha away. I don't think they're going to kick the door in and attack. I think it's going to be more about, are the witches going to let her go?
Yeah.
And Coral doesn't seem like she'll be down with that. Every time I say Coral, I think of
Coral.
yeah, I think of The Walking Dead. Coral.
Coral. That was from the Children of the Watch episode.
Yeah, they started it. They got it stuck in my head. Speaking of Cosmic Jedi, I wonder why the kids don't also see Coral as their mother, since Coral carried them. Did so much Coral now. Did Coral only get with Mother Anastasia after the kids were born? I wouldn't be surprised if Mother Anastasia has like a bit of a power play there. Just the way that she says, oh, my kids deserve spice cream. Don't you agree, Coral? Like, it does seem like she takes a little more ownership over them. And they're like, I think they're in a relationship, but they are butting heads on some issues.
Yeah, which I could see that happen if one person says, well, I created them, and the other person is like, I carried them. Mm-hmm. That can definitely, especially because that's all we know. We don't know what she did to create them. I can see the power struggle there.
Yeah.
Another super chat from Dan B900. With the usage of twins, it did remind me of Arcan and Thexan from the awesome Old Republic Sacrifice trailer. It does feel like May will kill Osha.
That, even though I have not played the Old Republic, this is one of the Old Republic cinematics, which were always bangers.
I was going to say, I don't recognize this.
It's really cool. I mean, that they all tell like just these little short stories, and they're animated so well. But Arcan and Thexan were like Sith twins that fought alongside each other for a while, loved one another, best buds. But one of them tried to kill their father, and they got into a fight, and one of them killed the other. It's very sad.
Hate it when that happens.
Ice says another one. I admit I may have misjudged Mother Anastasia. She seemed sus to me in the trailers, and I still do get dark side vibes from her. But I really liked her relationship with Osha and the way she nurtured her. Yeah, I mean, she has the dark side in her. She is willing to use it against Torbin. But I liked her a lot. I thought she was real sweet to Osha.
Yeah. I mean, that, like she said, this is about power and who's allowed to wield it. A lot of people thought, oh my God, witch, bad.
Yeah.
She's bad. She's a witch. It's
Get
not
the
that
witch.
simple. Yeah. See if she floats. NW Warrior 28. Do you think one of either Mother Coral or Anastasia may still be alive behind the scenes? Someone had to be behind Osha's vision of young May.
I still wonder where those are coming from, so it's possible.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to think because they didn't see Coral in the pile of bodies that she's still alive. But like a lot of those bodies were face down.
Yeah.
We can't say for sure that she just wasn't in there.
And even in like those shots,
it's hard to tell.
It's hard to see. I see someone that I'm like, that might be her, but just because we didn't see her, I don't know. I'm gonna assume for now they're both dead, so that like if there's a big twist and they're alive in episode 7, I'll be like, oh my God.
Yeah, like I said, I've been bringing it up a lot just because I could be on board with the idea of Coral being behind some of this and her still being alive or whatever, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it seems a little far-fetched at this point in the story.
Yeah.
But we can speculate responsibly.
We always do, like 80% of the time. Power Rangers Explained just says, we all listen to stuff while working. It's no problem. Okay. I'm glad you're not getting into trouble. And Miranda here said, I think it's best to just assume the twins were born by sapphic fertilization, not far off in today's science, or at least lesbian parents with a donor and a carrier. But the Jedi might conflate this magic with dark siding. I think that just based off of what Mother Anastasia said, it feels more mystical and maybe even sinister. Molly, you've brought up Coral's response to like, oh, what's going to happen if the Jedi find out how you created them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's probably some dark science or something the Jedi wouldn't like in there.
Dark science and cloning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Secrets only the Sith knew.
When she says that, Mother Anastasia just kind of stops talking, almost like touche. Like she knows that she's right. If the Jedi find out how she created the twins, they would not be okay with it, whatever it was, whatever method it was.
Yeah.
So
I think there's probably something mystical to it.
Cartuchos Truchos? Did I say that right? Do you think it's possible that the witches were trying to create a dyad in the Force? We kind of touched on this earlier.
I do think it's possible.
I don't know that they'll use that exact term. Or maybe they created a dyad and like unknowingly they weren't sure what was going to happen and it just came out as a dyad. I don't know.
I could see it happening. I mean, there's one of the, I think, a Secrets of the Sith reference book that I've got, and it has writings from Palpatine in it, quote unquote, and he says like people have tried to force create dyads before. I think he was more referencing the Sith attempting to do it, and like the rule of 2 was kind of made an imitation of the dyad. So yeah, I think it's possible. Or that maybe they made one on accident, like they were trying
That's
to
what
do,
I was saying. Yeah.
something else, and they're like, oh, well, we made a dyad. Okay.
Meant to do that. Totally.
Yeah, neat. LBC Robbie says, the way over the top toxicity of some of the ones that wanted to hate this show is really sad. And I hate the sequels, Kenobi and Boba Fett. Love Andor and Mando. Yeah, well, I mean, like, good for you for focusing on what you love. Like, that's what it's about. And that's, we get accused of loving everything Star Wars. It's like, no, we just talk about it all. And if we don't like it, we're not going to be dicks about it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we're still going to analyze it.
It is really sad, though, to see some of the, like, part of the reason why I had such a weird day today is because I was up half the night last night just with so much anxiety. I slept like garbage because of just the rampant replies and quote tweets on my tweet about my very first tweet about this episode that Star Wars retweeted. It just got seen by so many more people because of that. And some of the stuff on there, I was like, I try not to let it get to me, but the sheer amount of it that I had to go through and block one at a time was like, I don't know. I needed to take a breather after that. It's really shocking sometimes, like how much of it is out there.
It's something I will never understand, to be like, you know what? I don't like this thing and I have to make it like everyone else has to deal with the fact that I don't like it. I'm trying to think, I don't know. I don't really enjoy anime. I mean, that's not a good example because the anime I have seen, I've liked. I just don't watch it much. But I don't know. Some show that Doctor Who. We can't really get into Doctor Who. We've tried multiple times and it's like, I think this just isn't for us. But I'm never going to go and yell at everyone who loves Doctor Who and just bug all my friends who love Doctor Who and be like, you're watching garbage. It's campy. Blah.
Yeah.
I don't understand that instinct.
If they were to completely reboot Buffy the Vampire Slayer and do it in a way that I was not a fan of it, I wouldn't go out seeking the people that are loving it and reply to all their tweets with, it was garbage and you're stupid for liking it. Like,
not my Buffy.
What does that do for you? Oh, you're a big tough person on the internet making sure this other person on the internet knows how you feel. Like, it's so silly and it is sad.
Like, yeah, it's just sad. I'll leave it at that.
We can move on. We got to eat dinner at some point.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't come out that someone secretly sabotaged things. I want to believe she was going to let Osha pursue her dream like Shmi. Okay, Anasea. And the Phantom Menace, but her delivery of "consider your wishes" seemed shifty. My eyes are firmly on Coral, however. I do not trust her at all, and her body was not among the dead, maybe. So I think she's alive. I can see her being behind the greater fire, or at least kicking things off. I think Solon and Dara might hide things to protect Kelnaka and Torbin. If one or both were possessed, they wouldn't truly be responsible for their actions, but they may disagree, hence the dual exile. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I hope that if Kelnaka is possessed and he hurts Torbin, which it definitely looks like he hurts Torbin, hopefully Torbin would forgive Kelnaka and understand, like, that wasn't you, but Kelnaka would probably still feel guilt over it. But yeah. I think all 4 Jedi probably know the entire truth. I like the idea that they're all in on this secret shame together.
Yeah, they all took a pact. They were like, we never speak of this again, and we wash our hands of it.
Hope no one comes trying to kill us later.
Meg B asks, so why are the only 2 kids there? Is it a fertility issue with the coven or something more sinister / secret?
I think more sinister secret. Maybe not sinister, but it seems like there's a deal about it. The 2 women doing the twins' hair, when Osha was like, "Don't you think it's weird we're the only 2 kids here?" And they're both
They were
like,
like, "Oh, you noticed that, huh?"
that little look to me means, and not to mention what Anastasia said. That
Yeah, maybe they used to have more kids and something bad happened to them. I don't know. I mean, my first thought is like, yeah, there's no dudes there, so there's no children, but that doesn't stop a coven of witches, right? Like, if they wanted kids, they'd find a way.
something like the fact that the whole Ascension ceremony, Anastasia said, like, we were blessed with the miracle of life, and this is a thing we haven't done since we went into exile. Like, it definitely seems like a big deal.
Hmm.
So, yeah, more to learn for sure, but I
Maybe
would
they
lean
used
towards secret science and stuff, secret force stuff.
maybe they used to have men in the coven, and like the nth wives, they lost them.
Yeah, okay.
I was waiting for you to laugh at that.
It took me a second, sorry. We lost them. Josh Mansfield has a couple here. How did Torbin go from Padawan to Master in 6 years? It was 16 years, which is still fast.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah. He was like, I got to be a Master so I can take the Barash vow and go sleep. Maybe that's...
He worked so hard, his hair started falling out.
I wonder if there could be like not a pity promotion, but like Indara, after whatever happens, could be like, hey, you've been through enough. I've taught you enough. You're a knight now. And then who knows how long after that he became a master. But yeah, Keeve Trinnis went from Padawan to master real fast. Of course, the Nile were around, and that was a whole problem.
Ooh, what if it was like
faster.
What if it was like a pity promotion?
That's what I just said.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So we're both like fading because we're not.
I started hearing circus music in my head.
Josh also says, what if Coral attacks the Jedi and May only sees retaliation? I think that's a possibility.
May only sees excuse me, May only sees the Jedi attacking.
Yeah, if they retaliate.
Yeah.
Could be.
I mean, they're 8 years old at this point, so them missing a bit of context for what happened is definitely going to shape how they think about what happened for the rest of their lives.
Even if May sees like the whole picture, she still might, in her head, see it as the Jedi attacking her family.
Yeah. Kitty asks if we're getting the Barad-dûr, did I say that right? Lego? I just got it.
I don't know. Probably not. I've already got so many Legos and nowhere to put them.
It's a slippery slope if we start getting the really expensive Lord of the Rings sets.
Yeah.
Then we got to get all of them.
I know.
Where are we going to put them?
I did always want the Isengard one. I kind of regretted not getting it when it was readily available. I do think we're going to get the Tuxedo Cat, though. We got to get that one.
It looks just like Pippin.
I want to customize it so it does look just like him.
And then we can have it as part of our set, and he could be in every video.
I do want to like build it and then put him next to it and see what he does to it. And the answer is knock it off the table. That's what he would do.
I would absolutely watch him do that.
Cassia Pie, good to see you. The Jedi might have heard of fatherless children. They knew Osha had a sister and went to Brindok to see if one could be the chosen one. They might have been more interested in finding the chosen one to cleanse the sins against the nameless, and this time at the end of the High Republic. I like that. We're digging deep into the prophecies and stuff.
To cleanse the sins against Oh,
The Nameless,
against the
yeah.
Nameless.
So that was from one of the prophecies that was in Master and Apprentice, which came out before the High Republic started, but people were already like making that connection with the Nameless. And what does that mean? What sins against the Nameless? What are the Jedi going to do in that part of the timeline?
Yeah, I like that.
But I'm curious how much the Jedi know just in general about the Chosen One prophecy. Because I remember in Master and Apprentice and Dooku Jedi Lost, like Dooku and Qui-Gon were into Jedi prophecies and mystics and stuff, and a bunch of the other Jedi were like, oh, these weirdos. So
yeah, I think some of them, I mean, everyone has access to the Jedi archives, and some of them maybe take it up as a hobby to like really go deep into the prophecies, and a lot of them are like, nah,
I'll pass. Ty Brute says, if they make a Lego of me, you'll get it though, right? I mean, yeah, I'm sure we would.
Ty Brute, of course. How could we not? Oh, hi, PLD. Sorry for joining so late. Just wanted to throw out there, if you haven't bridged it, Kelnaka versus Torbin. Get ready for it. And no Hondo watch going for his grandpappy. Hashtag Jondo watch instead.
Hondo's grandpappy.
Yeah,
That
we
would
did touch
be
on
absurd.
we did touch on the Kelnaka versus Torbin fight that we see in the trailers, and that we are definitely going to see more of it.
I can't wait to see Kelnaka in action. The trailers that they have shown with the lightsaber fighting, I'm like, that looks pretty rad. And if they can mix the martial arts kind of fighting along with the lightsaber dueling, like that'll look cool.
Yeah. And you know, I kind of like that it's been a slow build up to any big lightsaber fights.
Yeah. And Josh Mansfield, thank you for correcting me. This is correct. Torbin took the vow 10 years before the present day. The stuff on Bryndock was 16 years. So I guess he was a master within 6 years.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying that wrong, and I forgot to correct you. I was like, wait, no.
You forgot to correct me? You love doing that.
I know. I'm off my game. I must be hungry or something.
But yeah, I guess it happened quick. I mean, Anakin expected that he could go from Padawan to Master in just 3 years. Trying to remember how long Obi-Wan was just a knight. I guess it was 10 years. So, man, yeah, come on, Obi-Wan, get it together. Torbin did it in 6. But I don't know, 6 years, like, it's not unheard of in Star Wars. I would say it's rare, but maybe he was taking the Barash vow so well, everyone was like, let's just make him a master.
Oh,
He's been quiet for 10 years. Let's just promote him. And then when he wakes up, he'll be so surprised. He'll be like, you guys, get my robes.
You're like, hey, Torbin, how you feeling? Guess what? You're a master now.
Little surprise party for him.
That would be hilarious. He'd be like, what?
Maybe he just had like a crazy 6-year career and did a lot of stuff to try to distract himself from what was bothering him.
That's what I kind of assumed. Partially that, but also maybe like a pity promotion.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see him, like, maybe this event gets him promoted to knight, and then he quickly does a bunch of other stuff. But my headcanon is now promotion mid-meditation. But that is going to be it for our stream this week. It's time for us to go cook some dinner. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you again to Daughters of Ferrix. Go check them out in the links in the description if you haven't already. Next week, episode 4, we've got Talking Bay 94 on. Oh, that worked out.
Hey.
94 for episode 4. So looking forward to hanging out with Brandon. Oh, and there we go. Bye, Eleanor.
Bye, Ellie. Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, this was a good one. I enjoyed talking about it and talking out our feelings on it.
This, I do want to say that this was a great stream, great chat with Daughters of Ferrix, but also everyone in chat. It was fun hanging out with you. Thanks for being our chat. It's fun and easy to talk with all of you, and that means a lot to us.
And
So,
thank you, mods,
thank you.
for keeping it that way.
Yeah. And yeah, we will have a Lego stream tomorrow. That's the plan. So come hang out with us tomorrow if you want to. But we got to wrap up. We got to go eat. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And may the Force be with you.
Bye.